welcome to another roll of 24 for the week of 6 through 12 July 2026. And here is my theoretical roll of 24 film. And so in this week's roll of 24 that I took is once again a very eclectic week of photographs. The purposeful picture this week, purposeful pictures, is based on centering. So having a subject right in the center of the frame, and so I ended up cropping all these to usually 1x1s to make sure. So that was Charlie in a tunnel. I've captured this one, which there's a story behind that image there. Charlie and I went out to Stillhouse Lake to the wildlife management area, and when we pulled up into the parking lot, there were these two middle-aged gentlemen driving around with these RC cars. And Charlie was just having a field day inside the back of the car trying to get out. But I jumped out, grabbed the camera, kind of overdid it. I had the 200 to 800 lens on, so they're kind of close. After the cars, Charlie and I went out and did some birding out there at the wildlife management area. And I just love capturing those birds. So they're really red-winged blackbirds. And then continuing from last week and the week before, my WaterTower series. I found several more water towers throughout my town and photographed those. So once again, this is going to be a very eclectic week of varying photographs. Thank you for joining. And so here is image 1 for this week's roll of 24. And as I mentioned, this week's challenge was getting a subject right in the center and try to minimize how much I had to crop. I did crop most of these into 1x1s and then used the program inside of Lightroom to get the center correct. And this is our start of our adventure over at Central Texas College, where I wanted to capture some ducks, the pond, and a variety of different things with center images. And Charlie, I just need to learn to let Charlie run around first before I start getting serious. And as you saw in the last image, the pond in front of us, and so I was approaching it on the right-hand side because there was a walkway, and there were these 4 ducks, geese, I'm not really sure, that were out there in the pond. And as we approached and I was trying to set some compositions, they started coming towards us. I guess a lot of people come out there and throw breadcrumbs or whatnots into the water. I was just amazed on how clear this pond is, though a lot of silt is in there. And you'll see later where Charlie actually goes in the water and kicks a bunch of that silt up. But I just loved how this center composition turned out with the 4 ducks in the center. So you'll notice that this is 2B. The prior one was 2A. And what I was working on here is, while the ducks are nice bright white, and through training and reading and everything, everybody says that the viewer's eyes go to the brightest part of an image before they flow elsewhere. And so I was working on trying to compose a brighter spot in the center, but not so bright that it lightens everything up. And as you can see, it looks like a crescent from starting around the 11 o'clock, coming down to the 6 o'clock, and going up to the 3 o'clock. So I lightened that area, but I subtracted out the back area. And so when I went out there, I was using the R5 Mark II, and I had a 14 millimeter lens on there, ultra wide angle. And I just loved how the clouds were presented this day. And actually you can see with the ultra wide angle, I picked up a lot, but you can actually look down at the 7 o'clock position, a turtle swimming into the view. And for the center part of this composition, I was focused just to the left-hand side of that center tree. And so here, when full view, you can see that's where, just right at the edge where it's the brightest, was where I was trying to capture the center aspect for this overall image. And so Charlie was a little adventuresome out there, and there was this little culvert that allows the water from the higher part of the campus to flow down into the pond. And Charlie wanted to go in there and check it out. And bending over and everything, trying to get the screen. It was super bright outside where I was at because you can see the sun right there in front of Charlie. And so trying to look at that, put the camera down on the ground, hold his leash, trying to get all these things together and snap off a couple frames. And you can see how bright it is. I had to use 1/8,000 because I really wanted to play with the f1.4 and just get Charlie in focus on this. And so here is Charlie out there actually in the pond. And remember earlier I talked about all the silt, and it was just really funny watching him roll around. He actually got out there and swam some. And I had this recorded. I was at 1/250 on the camera for recording. And so that's how it comes out. And so after Charlie finished his swim, he decided to get back in for another go of it. So here I am trying to balance the camera up to my eye, still maintain positive control of the leash. And Charlie got excited. You can see his head up there as he's looking out at the ducks. And he was thinking about going out and checking them out. And so thank goodness I had him on the leash, because otherwise he would have gone out there. But there was a snapping turtle, or what I think is a snapping turtle, that was approaching, trying to check Charlie out. So I gave him a tug and pulled him out of the water just in time, because I'm not sure what would have happened if the turtle had gotten a hold of him. And so after that last image, Charlie decided to go back in and had the camera ready this time. You can see the line is kind of tight there. So he's at his max 16 feet, and you can see the ducks over at the 9 o'clock position actually coming out. And I guess they wanted to play. I'm not sure. And Charlie won't go swimming in our backyard pool. He'll get in there. But here you can see he's all the way past his harness. The water is over his back. And I'm just glad that I do have the leash on him in case he gets tangled up or gets stressed out in there, that I can pull him out. But once again, you can just see all the silt that he kicked up while doing his little doggy paddle out there to go check out the ducks, or the ducks to check out him. Just super funny. Enjoy to watch. And so here's the story behind the story here, because once again, I was trying to do center composition. And while I had the ducks and I had the landscape with the trees reflecting in the pond, I really wanted something different and unique. And Charlie had finished his swimming, and he'd gotten underneath this tree to sit down. And down here are these tree stumps or tree something or others, tree growth. And I just thought they were really interesting. And so Charlie was right behind me laying down on the grass. I got the camera, and you're going to see in the next two images what those tree stumps actually look like when they're blown up with a 14 millimeter. So here is the first of two compositions, and once again, when this zooms in, you're actually going to see Charlie's nose through the tree trunks there, or tree roots. I'm not really sure, but from that prior picture you just saw, it's just amazing. To me, what this looks like is like dinosaurs near the end of times screeching up. But here you can see Charlie's nose to get a perspective of how small these tree roots actually were. But when you're using a 14 millimeter ultra wide, you can see I was at f9. I was maybe all of 5 or 6 inches away behind this image when I started taking photographs. And so here is the second of two images. I call this one relative size with Charlie, because here now you can see, before we had the image looking down at these tree roots or whatever these protrusions are from the tree coming out. And I didn't even realize that Charlie had wandered around down there, because he was at the end of his 16-foot leash. So he just came down and started wandering around. So the prior picture, I'd captured his nose. And while I was still bent over trying to capture this image, I didn't even realize until post-processing that he came up and was right next to where I was photographing. So you can see Charlie's relative size to these tree roots. They're pretty small, but they look pretty large. So out there at the Stillhouse Hollow Lake Wildlife Management Area that I like to take Charlie to, one, because I can just let him run around with his short leash on. I don't have to hold it, so he gets to have fun. But you drive down a dirt road for about a mile, and then it comes into a parking lot for the hunters during the duck hunting season and dove season. And it's just dirt parking lot. Anyways, Charlie and I pull in, and I look over right where I normally park underneath a tree are two gentlemen in their late 30s, early 40s, sitting back in lounge chairs. And I look over, and they've got these RC race cars, and they have little jumps. And so I got out of the car and said, "Hey, how's it going? That looks pretty cool." And I said, "Hey, hang on." So I went back to the back of the car. The camera was all set up with the 200 to 800 on the R5 Mark II. And I'm like, man, this is overkill, 200 to 800. So put it back at 200, and then looked around behind the car and said, "Hey, I'm ready. Can you jump your RCs over the ramps a couple times?" Evidently, when you asked the guys to perform, they kind of failed. They kept on sliding off the end, or they missed the ramps. But eventually, this one car was able to go off the ramp several times, and I was able to capture it in motion. And I thought that was pretty cool. So, but they were gone by the time we finished birding. So after we left the parking lot area with the guys with the RC cars, we started walking down. It takes about, it's a mile and a half to the lake. We walked down a mile because that's about where the trees end on the right-hand side. And we saw nothing. We heard some, but we didn't see anything. But on the way back, I was able to capture this dick sissel over in a tree. And I'm not focused, well, I am focused on the dick sissel, but the purpose behind this image is the brambles or whatever kind of plant that this bird had decided to sit on. Very accommodating because I was getting stressed out after 2 hours of walking around with no captures. So as you just saw there, the wind was blowing kind of hard. And once again, after the dick sissel, Charlie and I started walking back up in the trail back towards the car. And one of the things I always try and remind myself in photography is always stop, do a 360-degree look-see, and see what's behind you. Because sure enough, this red-winged blackbird had actually come in and landed behind us. And I didn't even see it, so Charlie's still wandering around up the trail and had to yell after him gently. And I'm at 519 for zoom out of an 800 because I wanted to capture a little bit of an environment. But as you saw in the video, the branch was moving quite rapidly throughout. So here is another image of that red-winged blackbird. And it's not the greatest focus, but that's not the reason why I included this picture in this one. Is there's actually a series. I didn't put all three of them in here. But as you can see, if you go from the red wing on the bird and go up to the 2 o'clock position towards the corner, you could actually see a bee or a bug, something. And so when I was processing, I was like, what is that? I thought I had a smudge or something on the lens, but I captured a picture of the bee bug right here, one right in front, and I thought the bird was going to eat it, but it did not. And then I had another one where it passed by. And here is the third and final image of that red-winged blackbird. And I liked how this one did turn out. There's some sun now. The clouds were in and out. It's hard to see clouds in the background in these images because I was so focused in on them. But the sun was in, out of the clouds. I just liked how the sun peeked out here and highlighted the plant and the back of the red-winged blackbird. So I included that image into this week's Roll of 24. We don't have these around my residence. I'm about 20 miles away from where this lake is at. So it's always exciting for me to be able to capture one of these birds out there in nature. So in that video you just saw, you could hear the bird, which eventually was this bird, but you can also hear Charlie. He was panting down below me. He came back from his walk and like, what are you doing? What are you trying to photograph? I spent about 25 minutes just standing there. I videoed the tree because I could hear a bird in there. I just could not find it. And after about 20 minutes, I finally spotted this bird coming out, a northern mockingbird. And I was just so excited and just held down the button with the Canon R5. So I had the pre-capture on. So that was 15 photographs, and I think I filled the buffer up. So I took like 90 pictures in total, and probably about 3 of them turned out. So as I mentioned in the introduction, and again here, so I'm trying to do a long-term 12-month project of water towers, and I figured, well, what better way than start out with some water towers in my own neighborhood before I start traveling around Texas, since it is such a large state. And earlier in the day, I was out there at Central Texas College. But you can see now this is on July 8th, and so I've returned back out just to capture a water tower out there. And just love the clouds. I got lucky this day with nice cloud cover, and I was able to shoot uphill a little bit, so it gave this water tower some more prominence. And I just liked how the sun was over there on casting a shadow back to the east. So I was driving back from the Central Texas College and looking around, and there's several water towers over on Fort Hood, and I didn't want to go on to the military base to take pictures, so I found a place to pull over, and I was able to actually capture 2 different water towers from this one location. And you can see there that this is the 3rd Corps Phantom Warrior water tower. There's probably about 8 or 10 water towers. I'm not really sure how many, but Fort Hood is very self-sufficient in their own water cycling system. But just loved how the sun was casting over here from the left to the right, because it is 4 o'clock, so the sun's starting to get in a set position. And still looking around the horizon out there at the Fort Hood location that I found to pull over off post. This is a water tower that supplies water to one of the medical facilities. It has the Medusa, I think that's what it's called, for the medical field and the military. So I just thought this was interesting. You can see it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I think it was probably about 95 degrees. So you can really see a lot of heat haze inside of this image. Really makes it difficult to clean up in post-processing. So didn't do a whole lot of adjustments really in post to this picture to present it here inside this roll of 24 this week. And so the prior week, Lovely Bride and I, or actually 2 weeks before, it was the 4th of July when we were going over to watch the fireworks, and we turned down this road to go to where we wanted to be to view the fireworks. We had seen this water tower. It's one of many in the city of Killeen, and it has the city logo on it, the K, over there on the left-hand side. And so I went back out on this night and found a small little dead-end road that I was able to pull into and get pretty much even with it. And so I thought this was a pretty nice capture. And you can see, though, the heat haze coming up off those power lines. I didn't even think about removing those. So after I finished capturing that picture of the Killeen Water Tower, the parking lot that I was in, that was just right across from the dead-end road, was this food truck. And so I had the long 200 to 800 lens on, and so moved it around and captured this image of this person inside the food truck. This is a taco food truck. I've never eaten from it. There were several cars that did pull up and order while I was out there in the parking lot. Yeah, this was kind of overkill, 200 to 800, when I was probably all 50 feet away. But anyways, I just thought this was pretty interesting. I'd never seen any cars, but I guess I never paid attention because it was very busy. So I'm going to be honest, sometimes as a photographer and you're sitting there waiting for a bird to show up, you start looking around your environment, and that's what happened on this day. This is July 9th, and it's 8:23 in the morning, and I had been sitting in my chair for about 45 minutes. I had put my bird seed out at the normal time, 7:30, quarter to 8, but nobody was showing up. Charlie wasn't scaring them away because there was nothing to scare away. So anyway, I'm just sitting there, and I was like, you know what? This looks like a unique picture. Anyways, these are pipes coming from my hot water heater outside of the garage. And so I am still sitting there and sitting there waiting for some birds to show up. And they do show up. The last two images, 23 and 24, are of birds that did show up. So once again, I'm looking around, and I think Lovely Bride bought this house or whatever it is probably about 15 years ago, and it's just been floating around the backyard, going here and there. Pretty well beat up and everything, but we just have it sitting underneath a pagoda. Pagoda? Yeah, I think so. Anyways, it was just sitting out there, and from where I was sitting, I just had a unique angle coming up into it, and the sunbeams were starting to come in. So if you remember the images of the water pipe, those were taken at 8:23. And then I got bored and went inside, got some coffee, came back out. Still no birds. Then I took the picture of that house, and now it's 10:53, and some doves finally showed up. And while it was kind of discouraging that I had to wait so long in order to capture something, I just like how I now had dapple light coming through the crepe myrtles that are on the east side of my property, right along basically from where I sit all the way to the backyard. And the light was able to come through to highlight these doves as they partook. And I just loved how I've been watching this finch and some other finches flying in and out. And I did capture some of them, but this one, I just loved how it actually stopped right there where the small little piece of sunbeam was coming through. And once again, I kind of got excited. I think I probably did about 20 pictures of him. This one I like the best. His mouth is closed. It's got his head cocked up in a little bit of position. And you get that little piece of red there from the crepe myrtle flower petals that are blowing down over onto the walkway up into the office. Anyways, I just loved how this bird ended up posing for me. Well, I hope you enjoyed this week's roll of 24. Once again, I said it's going to be a very eclectic week, and I think it was, from water towers to wildlife to RC cars, and my purposeful pictures of trying to get things in the center. So if you enjoyed this presentation, please consider subscribing and hit that like button. I'd really appreciate it, and I'll see you all again next Wednesday. Bye. And welcome again to another week of Roll of 24 for the week of 6 through 12 July 2024.